Ray. Dr. Rashawn Ray is a David M. Rubenstein Fellow in Governance Studies at the Brookings Institution. He's a professor of sociology and the executive director of the Lab for Applied Social Science Research at the University of Maryland. He's also one of the co-editors of the Context magazine, Sociology for the Public. Formerly, Ray was a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Health Policy Research Scholar at the University of California, Berkeley. Dr. Ray is a public intellectual and has been interviewed on CNN, BBC, and several other major media outlets. He also has a social media presence of over 40,000 followers. And for today, he'll be discussing the top 10 things every Black person should know. Take it away, Dr. Ray.
All right. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. I really, really appreciate it. It is great to be with you all here today. Just giving a couple of shout outs in particular to Eric Love and Patrick Smith, two brothers who helped raise me, so to speak, when I was getting my PhD at Indiana. So I'm gonna get right into it. Look, I heard the last discussion. It was great. David, great job. I look forward to continuing that conversation. And part of what I wanna do is leave you all with, as you just heard, the top 10 things that you all need to know to be successful. And as we just heard a second ago, even though this is a Black man think tank, the things that I'm going to share are quite applicable to anyone, whether that be Black women, whether that be other men of color. So kind of put your seatbelts on. I'm going to cover these things and highlight it and go through the sort of things that have led me to get to this point. What I hope is by the time that I'm finished, that we'll be able to have quite a vibrant conversation with you all having the ability to ask me. What's wrong?
I can't say anything.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So hopefully by the time that I'm done, we'll be able to have quite a vibrant conversation. Getting right into it. The first thing you need to know about being successful is if your dreams do not scare you, they are not big enough. If your dreams do not scare you, they are not big enough. Still to this day, when I dream, either while I'm sleeping or when I'm awake, those dreams literally haunt me. They scare me. They make me fearful, questioning whether or not the things that I've actually seen, I'll be able to accomplish and pull off. One of the things that I hear a lot from people is they ask me how I do it. They say that I make life and work easy. And I think in my mind, it's pretty interesting because I work really, really hard. and part of the big thing about dreams is that I stalk my dreams. See, when we talk about dreams, we act like they're just that they're dreams, that there's something that can potentially happen that we don't have control over. I don't look at it like that at all. I view the dreams that I'm given as oftentimes a gift from God and put into my life as something that I'm supposed to not just dream about and think about, but that I'm supposed to chase and catch. And so part of what I'm going to share with you are the strategies I've used to get to where I'm at. I'll share a series of things about my life that will kind of layer things up and help things make sense. And so for me, look, I'm married with two kids. These are my two boys. I can't believe how fast they're growing. This picture was actually probably about 4 years ago. I think when my youngest kid was graduating from kindergarten. Like, I mean, look, people have graduations for everything. You graduate from kindergarten, you get all kind of stuff. But nonetheless, that was that. This is them and my wife. I coach them in sports. Look, Halloween is a big deal in my household. In particular, you all see us there at Scooby-Doo. This is us as Fortnite. If you play video games of any kind, you know that that's a big deal. We were actually at the Lincoln Memorial in DC. We had this Rays takeover Washington, DC moment, which I think was pretty fitting considering who was in office a few years ago. And then this is them now. So this was just last year, a 9 and a 10-year-old. And for me, when I think about everything I do it for them too, my wife, my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, and my other extended family. For me, it's very clear why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. even the type of work that I do publicly, as people would call me now, a public intellectual, is all for them. See, for me, when my youngest kid was born, when I was doing a postdoctoral fellowship at UC Berkeley. So as I mentioned, Indiana, I got my master's and PhD in Indiana. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Memphis in Tennessee, which is where I'm originally from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. My mom and I moved 14 times by my 18th birthday. A lot of fluidity, a lot of different schools, and she raised me by herself, working a full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, put herself through nursing school. And the only thing I had to do was make A's. I was like, that's a pretty easy trade-off. I think that I can do that. And my mom got pregnant with me when she was in the military by a sergeant who I've never met before. So I've never met my biological father before. It's just me, my mom and I moving around the South, and then now moving around the country, as I'll get to in a second. But my mom had a choice where she had actually got admitted to West Point. We got to think about this. A Black woman being admitted to West Point in the late 70s, all of a sudden is one of those situations where she had a choice where she could have an abortion. She could choose to give me to my grandparents, or she could choose to get out the military and raise me. She chose the latter, and I continue to appreciate her to this day for that choice that she made. And she'll come up a little bit later as well as I'm talking through this. So part of my trajectory is that going from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, growing up in Atlanta, going to college in Memphis, going to grad school in Indiana, doing a postdoc at Berkeley, and then also going to also spending time at the University of Mannheim in Germany, where I taught and did research for a period of time. And now being at the University of Maryland, I can say that education has brought me to this point. And education does pay off, and it does pay. And part of that is having delayed gratification. So part of thinking about my trajectory, this is a baby picture. When I was a kid, this is me with my uncle, who was 16 years older than me. God rest his soul, he passed away a few years ago before the age of 50. And I'll get to that a little bit later about how we also have to take care of ourselves as we go through the process of what we're doing. This is a picture of me when I was like 3 years old. The fascinating thing about this picture, it was in our local paper. and besides the fact that they spelled my name all crazy, you all probably can't see that. That continues to happen to this day. But my home county of Rutherford County, Tennessee, put out a Black History Month calendar just this past February, and I was featured in it. And so for me, it was pretty interesting to think 40 years later, here I was just coming out of a barrel on the playground to be featured in this Black History Month calendar with some of the people who I would hold up throughout my childhood and my adulthood life. This was me when I was a kid with my godfather. This is my grandfather. So I'm showing you the male role models that I had in my life, where my mom was very clear about putting me in front of certain people. Playing sports was a big part of my life. Yeah, I had the Bobby Brown, the high right, low left. Boy, you couldn't tell me nothing. This was like 1989, 1990. Boy, that green silk shirt. Oh, you look, y'all don't know who you talking to. Being 10 years old. And then, of course, thinking about my kids being the same age now that I was then. And you see what their school picture says right there. When they go to school, every day they see this when they get off the elevator. We believe in all their dreams, and they dream big. That's a large part of what you have to do to be successful. The second thing is you have to find your passion, and then you have to find how to get paid for it. What do I mean by that? Well, look, if you're good, people will pay you. So you have to figure out what your passion is, and then you figure out how to get paid for it. One of the best examples for me growing up was a guy who I still look up to and respect highly. His name is Craig Watkins. And Craig started working a corporate job. And I have a lot of friends where that's their thing. That's their life. Like they love it. They're going to be in the C-suites. That's their thing. But it became clear that that wasn't Craig's thing. And even though he was making a lot of money, he was not happy. So he literally quit his job. Now, I don't advise most people to do that, especially if you have a family, like secure your next bag before you leave your current bag. But he quit his job, And he literally went back to his passion, which was dancing. And now to date, he has not only toured with some of the biggest artists and doing choreography for them, he also has a large dance studio in our hometown. And part of thinking through that is thinking about how you have to find your passion. You have to be willing to deal with it. And as you see some of these quotes, to succeed, you have to believe in something with such a passion that it becomes a reality. If you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion, for your passion will lead you directly to your purpose. Life isn't about finding yourself. In fact, life is about creating yourself. See, oftentimes people talk about finding yourself. I don't find myself, I create it. I'm like, what did I want to be? What did I want to accomplish? And then finally, do what you love and love what you do. 85% of people oftentimes are going to come out of college with a degree and get a job in something that was not in the degree that they actually received. And a majority of them are going to be unhappy. And one of the things that's going to actually happen with that is that the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to look up and you're going to be 30 and you're going to be really unhappy. And you're going to be making the amount of money you're going to be making with a family structure and real life bills that's going to be difficult for you to get out of. So part of it is thinking through how you want to do that and what you want to do in that moment. Part of finding your passion, again, is finding your purpose. You should ask yourself these key questions. What are you willing to do for free? What are you willing to do for free? Like real talk, I'm getting paid to do this, partly because you have to get paid for your time. And in particular, you have to get paid for your expertise. But if it wasn't for my wife being like, you can't do everything for free, I would do a lot of things for free because I love to do it. Writing, speaking, doing research, sharing information. That's what I love to do. These are the things that excites me. What are you willing to get up early and stay up late for? Because that's what you're going to have to do. There have been times, and of late have been times, particularly over the past year, with everything that's going on, which has collided on my research, from the research that I do on police brutality and policing, to the work that I do on health disparities, to the research that I do on voting. 2020 collided on what I do. And I felt like I had an obligation to speak out even more than I had been doing. And so part of thinking through that is as I go through that process, not just now, but even when I was in undergrad, when I would be applying for grad school, when I'd be staying up late for a test, when I would be in grad school getting my PhD, where I would be given 1,000 pages to read every week. And I'd be sitting up in Bloomington where it literally felt like Get Out. Like now I used to talk about a deer. Like, you know, you see a deer and the deer see you and you kind of had a standoff. Well, look, Bloomington now with Get Out, I could just say Bloomington was like Get Out. Right. And probably for some of you, other parts of Indiana, even where you all are, is like that. Like Get Out helped us to make sense of our own reality. And so part of thinking through that was a struggle. And in doing that, I'd be working 60, 80, 100, 120 hours a week. That's not abnormal to do. The question is, are you willing to pay the price for that? Because see, it's real easy to be mediocre. It's really difficult to be exceptional. But one of the things we know is you wouldn't be at Notre Dame or whatever university you're at if you were not exceptional. But see, the thing you got to realize, everybody else who got there with you was also exceptional. So like when I got admitted to Indiana to get my PhD, when I went to Berkeley to do my postdoc, everybody else coming in with me was also exceptional. What was I going to do to then separate myself even more? Because see, there are levels to this. And you have to be continuously willing to grow. What are you willing to sacrifice time with family and other fun activities for? That's going to be a part of life. My kids right now just went to an outdoor drive-through birthday party. You know, like that's a new thing during COVID. You ride down the street, like you say hi to your friends, and then they give you a little baggie, and then you keep on riding down the street. But I don't like to miss those moments. But you know what? I'm here with you all. And so one of the things that happens for me with my profession and how I get paid, people not only have to pay me for my time, people have to pay me for the time I'm missing out with the people that I love. That's when you really start to control what you do. And I kind of have a calculation by which I go about how to calculate that amount. So you have to figure out how to get paid for what you love to do. Don't be scared of it. Instead, run towards it. And you have to set goals. Some of my goals are big things that I've been able to accomplish. I wanted to have my PhD by the age of 30. I had it at 29. I wanted to buy my first house at 25. I bought it at 24. I wanted to be full professor by the age of 40. I did it at 39. Because I set goals, and these were the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I was willing to pay the price to do it. See, oftentimes in life, the thing I've realized, and I hope I'm making this clear, it's not always about how smart you are or how talented you are. If you're at Notre Dame, we already know you're smart and talented. We already know that. Else you wouldn't be there. I already know that my students that come to University of Maryland, that get into the honors program or come into our PhD program, I already know they're smart or talented, else they wouldn't be there. And I already know they've been successful at the previous place they were, else they wouldn't be where they are now. The question is, what are you going to do to level up to be successful where you are right now in the trenches? See, getting tenure, people hear that. Oh, I got tenure. You know, it's a big deal. But what people don't realize about that process is that it's typically a 7-year process. 7 to 10 years oftentimes, to go from assistant professor to associate professor. Then it's another 7 to 10 years to go from associate professor to full professor. I did all of it together in 9 years because I set goals and was not playing with what I needed to accomplish. And part of what that meant was I had to publish a lot of research. I had to conduct a lot of research. I had to teach a lot of classes. I had to do a lot of service work, serving on committees. And you know what? This was the price that had to be paid. So when my kids were babies, I remember, I don't advise to do what I'm about to tell you about. But I remember when my kids were babies, both of them were born in California, right? Right now, they're these suburban Maryland kids growing up in Prince George's County, which, as you all probably know, is the most affluent Black county in the United States. But they were born in Oakland, right? So I can already see them in high school and college, or where you are now, being like, when people say, where you from? Oh, I'm from Oakland. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to put on a front, like, yeah, man, you were born in Oakland, but you from the suburbs. But I get it. But these are the kind of things that people are gonna say. And so part of thinking through that, we moved to Maryland with a 4-month-old and a 20-month-old. Moved into the house we are now. And then when we're in the house, after a month or two, we had a snake infestation. See, when I say a snake infestation, let me tell you what I mean. My babies are crawling on the floor. My youngest couldn't even walk then. My oldest could barely walk. And we saw a snake by the front door. Then we saw one by the living room. Then we saw one in another part of the house. In short, a mama snake, when we were getting work done on our house, when we were still living in California, it was so hot that summer that the mother was looking for a cool place to lay her eggs. She crawled into our basement, crawled into our storage unit, laid her eggs, and hatched over a dozen baby snakes in our house. My wife was like, I'm out of here. Sell the house. I don't know why we're here. Let's move. Like she's flipping out. And I'm like, nope, we paid for this house. It's ours. The devil ain't gonna take it away. I got real religious. I'm Southern Baptist and Methodist. I was like, that devil's not gonna take it away. My mama came over with holy water, throwing it all over the yard. Like I was like, this ain't gonna happen, right? So I literally started catching baby snakes with my Dyson vacuum cleaner. Like that Dyson vacuum cleaner, that thing is worth that price. Like I can't lie, that thing can suck up snakes. The point of this story is that it's emblematic of how something amazing was happening in my life. I just had babies. I had just got this great job. I had just moved into this amazing house in this amazing neighborhood. And then something random that I could not control happened. The question became, am I going to fold or am I going to stand up to it? Those are oftentimes the moments that make you. Those are the stories that have you like, okay, what am I going to do and how am I going to accomplish that? So part of thinking through this is I want you to think about not only, of course, a lot of the public things I've done, which I mentioned before, but when you think about your life, and I want to ask everybody to do this. When you think about your life, just indulge me for a second. I know we're virtual, but just close your eyes. Close your eyes for a second. I want you to think right now it's 2021. I want you to think in your head. We fast forward to 2026, to 2031, What are you doing? And when I say, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing at this exact moment on a Saturday afternoon? What would you be doing? Would you be working because you enjoy the work you do? What kind of work would you be doing? Where would you be doing it at? What place would you be at? Would you be working from home? Would you be working in your own business? Would you be hanging out with family and friends? When you go to your favorite restaurant, how do you get there? Would you drive in a vehicle? If so, what kind of vehicle is it that you see in your head? Or would you be in DC or in another country, in an urban area where you can walk or hop on a train and live that neat urban life? Would you be on a beach? Who would be there? Do you have a family at that point? Are you married? Do you have any kids? Are you single? Are you just enjoying yourself? Are you in a house in the suburbs or are you in a high rise? And more importantly, on Monday morning, where do you go to work? What do you do? What gets you excited? What will you do for free? What will you run to do every single day of your life that gets you excited? Now I want you to open your eyes and I want you to think about what you just saw. And what you just saw, you can actually accomplish it. You can achieve it. You now have to put pen to paper or notes on your iPhone or whatever it is and backtrack those 10 years. Backtrack those 10 years and say, if that's where I want to be in 10 years, like I vividly remember when I got hired at Maryland, I had just turned 30. And I said, in 10 years, when I turn 40, I want to be full professor. So what does that mean now? Well, I just told you that going from assistant to associate is 7 years, typically 7 to 10. And going from associate to full is another 7 to 10. So now I got to figure out how to almost cut that in half, or at least cut off about, 33%. How am I going to do that? Well, I took a very specific pathway. First thing I did was, and just let me say that when you think about your dreams, you can think about things that get people excited. Vehicles. Not a big vehicle person. My wife is. She likes his car. Traveling. Went on a cruise. I think this was actually a cruise when I proposed to my wife, actually. And I took my wife, my mom, and my grandma on a cruise with me together to propose to now my wife. What about traveling? We took our kids to South Africa, a trip they'll never forget. It blew my mind. I was like, are we playing with lions and elephants? I was like, who does this? And that monkey on the top right, he was bad. He tried to take my phone. I would have never got my phone back. It had these pictures on it. That would have been tragic. But those monkeys were bad. Paris. We went to Paris. This was when we were living in Germany. We hopped on a train, went to Paris, got to see this at night. Went to Zurich, Switzerland was one of my favorite places. We were staying at this place. We had to get on this boat right here to even go to the mainland. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. They had floating TVs for the World Cup in soccer just floating on the water. I was like, man, look, I'm just a black kid from Tennessee. Like, I don't even know what this is. My dreams took me there. I didn't know this. I couldn't actualize it. So the third thing you really have to do is don't just chase your dreams, go catch them. You have to set goals. What do I want to be doing at 10 years? What do I want to do at 5 years? What do I need to be doing every year to accomplish my goal? Based on that yearly goal, what do I need to be doing every month? What do I need to be doing every week? What do I need to be doing every day? What do I need to be doing every hour? And what do I need to be doing every minute to get me to that 10-year goal? One of the ways you do that is you identify 5 people who are doing what you want to do. You put them in an Excel spreadsheet. You set them up, different ages. And you say, when they were my age, what were they doing? When they were 20, what were they doing? When they were 25, what were they doing? When they were 30, what were they doing? And you literally map it out on an Excel spreadsheet. And you color code it. And you put in what they were doing. Oh, okay, they went to law school. Oh, okay, 3 out of the 5 people went to law school. Well, guess what? You need to take your butt to law school then. Oh, and guess what? 2 out of the 3 actually went to the same school. You know what? Then you need to go to that school or school similar to that school because evidently they are training the type of people that you want to become. That was how I ended up in Indiana. You couldn't have paid me to think that I was going to be in Indiana. Couldn't have paid. I mean, you just couldn't have paid me. Like going to Indiana, that's just wasn't going to happen. But see, this is why you need mentors. Because I had a mentor in Memphis when I told her what I wanted to do, that I wanted to study social psychology and identity and why people make the decisions they make and how social institutions influence that. She said, Indiana is one of the places you need to apply. I was like, Indiana? It's like, I'm not going to Indiana. You lost your mind? But you know what? I went to Indiana. And for those of you from Indiana, you might not really realize this, but Indiana is really cold. I remember my first year of grad school. It was so cold. And E-Love and Patrick will remember this because, you know, global warming has warmed things up a little bit. But about 15, 20 years ago, it was really like, I mean, it was crazy cold. I remember one day I came out of stats class. We had a 4-hour stats class. Okay, 4 hours. Just preparing you all for what, you know, some of you all are going to go to. It was an hour and a half lecture. And then it was like 2.5 hours. Then it was like 2.5 hours of lab. And I remember coming out of class and it was negative 20-degree wind chill. I felt like I had on no clothes and I had on a whole bunch of clothes. That was, you know, back in the day, you know, I came up in the 80s and 90s where you had on big jackets. You know, we didn't wear like, you know, like skinny jeans wasn't a thing. Like you wore clothes too big for you just for no reason. So like I had on a bunch of clothing that made me warm. And I remember I got in the car, I called my grandma on my phone and I said, Grandma, it is so cold. And she was like, just come on, baby. You ain't got to stay there. And I was like, nah, Grandma, I gotta figure this out. Like I have to do this. And part of that next part of what I'm getting at, you have to form a council. Okay. I have a professional council and a personal council. Each are made up of 5 people. 5 is on purpose. Now, before my grandfather and my uncle passed away, it was my grandparents, my wife, of course, my mom and my aunt. And now it's still that group. It's the women, and then it's my godfather, and then it's my god brother. And whenever I'm making a big decision, I call them. And I oftentimes let majority rule. I tell them what's going on and I listen to them. But then I also have a professional counsel, people who are doing pretty much exactly what I'm doing or what I want to do. And I consult them on a regular basis when I have a big decision to make. And they oftentimes guide me. And so these sort of things are really, really important. And you can see some of these quotes here that become really important for thinking about this. Because look, the one on the bottom left is really big. If you don't build your own dreams, someone will hire you to build theirs. That is real talk. And as Colin Powell said, as General Powell said, a dream doesn't become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work. Go after your dream no matter how unattainable others think it is. And here goes one thing that's interesting. You can't share your dreams with everybody. Everybody's not worthy to have them. You're going to have friends in college. I had some. They're more like associates the more you look at it, but you call them friends, right? Because you live in where they live in and you're doing the same kind of things they're doing, but they're not worthy of your deepest dreams and thoughts. But then there are some that are. Make them earn that. You want to have the friends that when you give them an idea, when you're like, yeah, man, I'm thinking about doing this. And they say, well, I don't know if you could do that because this might happen and that might happen. See, sometimes they might just be pessimistic, but they probably got a little hate in them. You want to put your brakes on them and put them at arm's length. Now, sometimes it's oftentimes important to keep your enemies closer. That's definitely true. But what you want are friends like this. You tell them something and they say, that's a good idea. But you know, it'd be really dope. Or it'd be really dope is if you did this. Those are the people that you want in your life. And you have to surround yourself with them. You have to identify them. And they'll ebb and flow. And part of thinking about how they ebb and flow is that as they ebb and flow, I view life like a train going down a track. Look, man, some people just got to get off at the next stop. They're not worthy to go on with you. But you know what? If they get themselves together, as your train is going down the track, they can meet you at one of the next stops and get back on. But that's up to them to figure out, not you. And that becomes really important. So I talked about this, identifying 5 people at various career stages. Identify 5 people who inspire you and what leadership qualities you want to see. Make a 5 and 10-year professional and personal growth plan with specific goals and thresholds, and then identify people to be on your council. These things are really, really important to do. Really, really important to do. Because again, if you don't go after your dreams and accomplish them, you'll be working to achieve someone else's dreams. And I tell you, the older you get in your 30s, you get in your 40s, I would imagine definitely when you get in your 50s, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow. So you have to make sure that you do those things. Fourth, strive to be excellent at everything you do. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. So just do it. This is one of my favorite mottos. My coach playing football in high school would say something similar to this. He would be like, I don't care what you do, but whatever you do, you need to be the best at it. He say that all the time. And I completely agree with him. Excellence is not a skill. It's an attitude. Just be the best you can be. Never settle. Always strive to learn more, do more, and be more. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you. When I think about these quotes, I think about, and I'll talk a little bit more about failure in a second. But what I primarily think about is identifying your strengths and weaknesses. See, being successful in life is about knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at. At this age, not only do I know what I'm not good at, I also know what I don't like to do. And you know what? I try to avoid those things as much as possible. I try to outsource those things. I just don't like them. Or some things I just don't have time to do. You kind of got to start trading time for money is how you got to think about it, because you're never getting time back. It's like land. God ain't making no more land unless we end up on another planet. And as you all know, like I know, it's going to take a long time before we get Black people to get on a spaceship and go to another planet. So there ain't no more land being made right now. So you identify your strengths. One of my main strengths is that I work really hard. I outwork people. As Will Smith said, someone might be more talented than me. Someone might be smarter than me, but they would never outwork me. That's how I am. Figure out what you're good at. I know that my threshold for what I can tolerate in terms of stress is much higher than other people. I take advantage of that. I also am very good with time management. Very, very good with time management. Down to the second, I use all 24 hours in a day. All 24 hours. Use them. Throughout the day, research shows that we have 5 15-minute intervals in our day where we're not doing anything, but we think we're doing something. I learned to fill those 5 15-minute blocks with something and continuously increase my productivity, because that's the world we live in. It's about productivity. I'm also very good at listening. I listen very, very well. And I talk a lot too, obviously. I'm paid to talk a lot and write a lot and tell people what I think, but I'm very good at listening to people before I start talking. So then when I start talking, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Be humble, be resilient. Get up quicker than other people and bounce back. Those are things I'm very, very good at. Look, I can tell you all, I remember in grad school, I had taken my comprehensive exam, which is the exam that you take that's essentially like taking, the bar if you're a lawyer, or your medical exam. But when you're getting your PhD, you take it before you actually complete your dissertation, which is the big, long document that you write, right? Mine was like 250 pages. So book link stuff. And since then I've written books. But when I finished my comprehensive exam, my dissertation advisor, my chair, she brought me into her office and she essentially said, Rashawn, your writing isn't good. I was like, oh, what? Am I right? That's what we do. Like, I just turned in 60 pages to you. What you mean it's not good? She was like, it's not good. And she was like, let me be clear. If you want it to be average, maybe it's good enough. But for the places where you want to go, your writing isn't good enough. I literally felt like somebody had punched me in my gut and knocked me out. Like she was like, I actually think you need tutoring. Like you need some remedial help. I was like, remedial? I was like, what? I took it personally. I was like, I took AP courses in high school. What do you mean I need remedial? And she was like, look, she was like, you can take it or leave it. I'm just telling you, this is what you need to be where you want to go. And after I got knocked down, if anybody's seen Creed 2, it's one of my favorite movies. Oh man, when he gets knocked down at the end and Rocky's like, you're dangerous. You hadn't seen that movie in that clip. Y'all need to go watch it. It's deep. It's deep where he had to go mentally and physically to be the best at what he had to do. So I had to do that. I had to humble myself. So you know what I did? I came back a few days later, humbled myself. I said, who do you think the best writers are in our department? She told me. I identified one. I said, could I pay you to tutor me? And she said, well, I kind of have a better trade. She was like, you're good with kids. She said, I have a son. She was a single mom. And she said, how about we just do a trade? I help you with your writing. And look, my son needs more male role models. So we fast forward 20 years. And what's the point of that relationship? Well, not only is the woman who I'm talking about, Dr. Tiffany Saunders, a professor, but she also got elected to the school board and the city council in the town, in the city where she's a professor at. Her son is now 16 and I'm her godfather. And he's not only one of the top track stars in the country, like literally like he goes to the Junior Olympics. He is also an amazing thespian and tap dancer. And you know what? From working with her and humbling myself to go to the writing center, I'll be sitting in the writing center at IU with freshmen who had to be there because they did not qualify academically to go straight into the English course. I humbled myself. And now I look up and every month I'm writing for New York Times or Washington Post or Business Insider or The Guardian, you name it, NBC News. Now nobody can tell me that I can't write. I just published in one of the top sociology journals, the American Journal of Sociology. People can't tell me that I can't write. But you know what? That's because I work at it. I strive to be excellent. I humbled myself. I got knocked out and I got back up and went to a place that most people are not willing to do to accomplish the things that I needed to accomplish. I talked about time management. Look, let me tell you this. One of my other favorite movies is The Great Debaters. As you all can see, I love movies. I like movies. They're my outlet. I think they teach us about life like books. As Prince said, you know, Black Lives Matter like books. We should all have them. We have to find, take back, and keep our righteous mind. You have to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. What do I mean by that? Well, not only should you go watch that movie if you hadn't seen it with two amazing actors that you see there, but also it means that these institutions that we have to go to get our degrees, the Notre Dames, the Indianas, the Berkeleys, I spent time at University of Michigan, now I'm at Maryland. These type of universities were not built for us, nor oftentimes are they prepared to really embrace our full humanity and dignity. That still doesn't mean we don't have to go through them oftentimes to get the success that we need. And these places will literally have us feeling like we're in Get Out, like we're in that Twilight Zone, where they have ripped our hearts out, where they have ripped our minds out, ripped our ability to be gritty and resilient. So you have to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. As Yo Gotti says, look, you can't ever underestimate the enemy. And when you're Black and male in our country, or even in the world, or even a woman of color, oftentimes the enemy is the system that is embedded with racism and sexism, that oftentimes operates in a way where people go through it even when they're not actively trying to do anything about it. So you're going to deal with the isms. You cannot outclass racism. Don't think because you're going to have this Notre Dame degree or whatever degree you're going on to get next and however much money you're going to be making and whatever designer suit you're going to have and whatever nice car you're going to have and whatever dope crib you're going to have, that's going to some way absolve you from dealing with that. No, it could heighten it. And the more you become aware of that, then the better off you'll be. That doesn't mean you don't challenge it. That's what I do in my work. Is challenging it. And I advise you, no matter what profession you go into, to challenge the way that systems and rules, regulations, policies, laws, the way that they oftentimes inhibit equity. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want to have happen. So you're going to deal with the isms. You're going to also deal with what I call daily foolish ratchetness. Just daily foolish ratchetness. Just stuff that happens where you like, what the heck was that? And you know what? There's nothing better than it happening in a place with a group of highly educated people with a whole bunch of autonomy. They really act real ratchet then. You think that if you come from a particular background that the people you grew up with are ratchet. No, just wait till you be in a space where people aren't held accountable for their treatment of other people. That's when they get real ratchet. So you're going to deal with that. So what do you have to do to address that? Well, you have to compartmentalize. One of my other strengths is I compartmentalize very, very well. What do I mean by that? I talked about Craig Watkins earlier. I talked about how he had a dance studio, how him and another friend that I grew up with have a dance studio now. And I was a dancer. I played sports, I danced, I acted, I did everything that I potentially wanted to do growing up. And we used to dance like weekly, and we would come into practice, and people would be in there arguing and bickering, and he would say, I need everybody to walk back outside this room. I need you to take whatever is in your brain, take it out, put it in a brown paper bag, ball it up, sit it by the door, and when you leave, you can pick it back up. That lesson has helped me a lot, because there have been times where I've had to go to work when one of my babies have been sick. I've had to go to work when I've been sick. I've had to leave a meeting where I just lost something big and then have to go into another meeting with a smile on my face. That is part of what you have to do. You have to learn how to compartmentalize. You have to put those things in the brown paper bag and realize the cumulative moments make a difference to take you where you want to be. It's like jumping over hurdles. Are you going to jump over the hurdles, or are you going to stop and let those hurdles stop you? So part of these things are the things that you have to do. Number 6, you have to fail forward. You have to learn to fail forward. Fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. You have to try, you have to fail, you have to keep failing, and then you have to succeed. In my profession, it's worse than baseball. You know, think about baseball. You come up to bat in baseball like 3 or 4 times a game, right? You get one hit, you're an all-star. I played baseball growing up, played through high school. You shoot. I mean, I think my best year I was batting 400 something. That still means that over half the time I got out. But I was like an all-star. I was considered really, really good. So if you get 1 out of 3 hits, you're considered an all-star. And the more specialized you get, and the more you go up in your profession, the more you're going to fail. Nobody cares about how much you fail. They care if you fail forward and get your butt up, get back on the horse, and go make it happen. So when like my PhD students come to me and they're like, oh, well, my paper got rejected. That's too bad. Where's the next journal you're going to submit it to? You have to fail forward. You have to learn how to persevere. Life oftentimes rewards resiliency more than it rewards excellence. Understand that, because it's part of being resilient. Can you do it over and over again? Oftentimes I like to think about it like this. Oh, that's supposed to say strive for the stars. I put an extra T in there. Strive for the stars, because even when you fall, and fall you will fall on the roof you were once under. It's a quote from my grandma. She's an amazing lady. What she means by that is, look, if you look up in your place where you are right now, unless you're outside, you're seeing a roof that limits you. If you can see beyond that, if you can go outside, it's kind of like what MLK says. When you're walking across a bridge and that bridge is cloudy, you can see the next step in front of you. Take those steps. So strive for the stars and you will be successful. Number 7, invest money in yourself and the future you don't know exists yet. See, part of having autonomy in life is figuring out what drives you. See, for me, it's not money per se. Like, I'm not driven by money, but I have some friends who are, and that's okay. That's fine. They're driven by money. You can be driven by whatever you are. I'm driven by social change and justice. So you figure out what drives you. That drives me. But I also know I have to get paid for what I do. So you invest in yourself and the future you don't know exists yet. What does that mean? Well, you could do something organized, like put 10% away, like you would, give to church if you're a religious person in that way, or whatever your religion is. But part of investing in yourself is investing in a future you don't know exists yet. It's kind of like if you heard Kevin Hart stand up and he talks about how his friends be doing outlandish things and he can't do it because he's like, well, I can't do it because I can't access the money that's in this account, that's in that other account. I got to wait 3 days. Like, you have to set your money up like that, because let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to graduate from college. And shoot, David could probably tell you, when you graduate from college, you're going to have some friends, 22, 23, 24, 25. They're going to be making some good money for that age. They're going to be able to do a lot. You get 35 with 2 kids, and like in my house, a dog that my mom got that's running around, a cat, let me see. We got a lizard, we got a guinea pig, and we got some fish and some crabs. Because my youngest kid, like, he's gonna be a veterinarian or have some kind of animal farm or something. I don't know. But these are his dreams, they're not mine. So whatever he wants to do, I'm going to support that. So we got a little farm in here. But the point is saying that that money that you had at 25 ain't gonna work at 35. Ain't gonna work at 45. So you have to think long term. Real estate. Property is one of the main ways to build wealth. The stock market, if that's your thing. If you don't know how to do it, figure out who you can trust that can help you think through some of those things, particularly if you're able to access private equity. And then finally, whole life insurance, which is something a lot of people don't think about, which is kind of like a long-term savings account that gives you a lot of money if something happens to you. You have to figure out how much your body and your body of work is worth if something happens to you. Because you don't want the people who are coming behind you to suffer because you were making income versus building wealth. Eighth thing, find a spouse that upgrades you. Look, I know my wife is fine. It's not necessarily about her being fine. It's more about the fact that she supports every dream that I have. If I can get an idea out of my house, I know it's a winner. I don't need anybody else to tell me it's good because the number one uno, the ace in the hole, has already co-signed. And I'm good with that. And so find a spouse that upgrades you, meaning the way I think about it, my wife who has her own successful career as a nurse practitioner in this moment, literally dealing with the war of COVID, from testing dozens of people a day to giving, so many vaccines a day I couldn't even think about. I could even talk about the way she goes to work and what she has to wear so that we're able to sit here and do the kind of things that we're doing. So the way we think about it is we don't run a power I, to use a football analogy. We run a double halfback set. It's me beside her. It's her beside me. In some games, I get 20 carries and she gets 10. In some games, she gets 20 carries and I get 10. Because we are in this together. And we've been together a long time. We're like an old couple. We've been together since high school. That don't mean we ain't had problems. I could talk about that. And so if you've had a girlfriend, you're trying to figure it out, and look, we can have that conversation too. I hope I'm throwing out enough where you might want to ask whatever question you feel comfortable asking. But you have to find somebody who upgrades you. Find a life partner who is willing to support what you do. See, the thing about my wife that makes her great, I could be a sanitation worker, and nothing against that because they make good money and they work hard. And I make sure that periodically when they're coming by, I bring out some water and come out and have a conversation with, oftentimes because they look like me. And I realize that me and them have more of a linked fate than the white dude in the office next door to me at Maryland or Brookings. So I'm very clear about where I stand. But the point of saying that is she would support me whether or not I was doing that. So you want to find a person who can upgrade you. And very much to use the Beyonce language, since we just heard the song related to that before that. Number 9, take care of your mama. Or whoever raised you, your daddy, another guardian, you got to take care of them. This was actually my wife's recent birthday, but my mom got vaccinated and came up. She's here now. Look, you have to take care of the people who got you to this point. I could dwell on it, but you have to take care of them. The sacrifices that my mama made, and look, you really won't really understand the sacrifices your parents made, or your mom. For me, again, it's my mama, that my mama made, until you have to care for somebody else in that way. Oftentimes those are your own kids, but it doesn't always have to be. There are people who play roles in people's lives where they take on that level of responsibility. I tell you, when you have kids, you never sleep the same again in your life. I can tell you that much. Like it's just different. So take care of mama. Make sure that she's good. For me, it's not just my mama, it's my grandmama, it's my aunt. It's those sort of things. I just hopped on a plane. First time I traveled during COVID. My grandmother was in a tornado. If you've been following the news and the weather, there were huge tornadoes came through the South. My grandma fell. 2 days later, I was on a plane. I was like, it's time to go check in. And I did get vaccinated, by the way. Like all my immediate family has gotten vaccinated. We could talk about that as well. I've written about that. Number 10, identify what values drive you, and then identify those values in other people. I'm not talking about how much education you got or how much money you got in the bank. No, not those things. Those things are byproducts. For me, these are the 5 things that I value: trust, authenticity, dignity, loyalty, and hard work. If I don't see those 5 things in people, I'm probably not going to mess with you long. I don't have to tell you why. But figure out what values drive you. Oftentimes when we're young, it takes a while to figure it out, right? It's a lot of stuff going on. But figure out those values. And also, there are a lot of metrics you can use. There are a lot of things that you can actually, programs you can go through, online type of training modules to identify what you're good at, to figure out what you value, what you like, what your love languages are, so to speak, which didn't necessarily be about something that's happening in a bedroom, just more about how you value people. So identify those values. So look, final thing I'll say, I'm going to quote one of my favorite poets. This just must be the Beyonce Jay-Z show today. I'm going to quote one of my favorite poets, Jay-Z, who has on one of my favorite songs with Young Jeezy, where he's talking about Obama being president. And he said, Rosa Parks set so Martin Luther could walk. Martin Luther walked so Barack Obama could run. Barack Obama ran so all the children can fly. So I'm going to spread my wings and I'm going to meet you in the sky. And so I hope you put on your wings and you're actually able to fly as well. So I look forward to your questions and the conversation.
That was a really great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Rashawn Ray. We appreciate you. I want to open the floor for any questions. I would like to start off. It's about something you mentioned earlier in the presentation, just about like making sure you have a goal and trying to make sure you like everything everything you do has to be towards that goal. Like, do you have anything to say about like the problem that arises when you're basically doing everything for everything you do becomes a means to end? If you get what I'm saying. Yeah.
So what do you do when everything becomes a means to an end? Like you feel like that's
like, is that okay to feel like, you know, I'm doing this for this and then like sacrificing certain relationships, certain times with other people, or that because you feel like, you know, everything is a means to end and this is the means to, or this is the end that I'm trying to reach. So I have to do whatever I need to get there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, great question. I think so. You know, see, this gets at the last thing I just shared about what your values are. See, when you know what your values are, then when you make certain decisions, you know why you're making those decisions. See, oftentimes we make decisions and we don't really process or understand why we're making those. So when you sacrifice, say, hanging out with friends to study, you understand why you're doing that because you have another goal in mind. It's not up to you to help them understand, nor is it for them to understand. The ones who will understand will get that, right? And so it's one of those things where there are a lot of things where things are a means to an end. It's just a part of life. But one thing that I'll say is the more you do that and you accomplish your goals and you accomplish bigger goals, then it gets fun. Because see, for me, more than money, it's about autonomy. Can I do what I want to do when I want to do it? And I can. Like right now, it's a Saturday afternoon. I'm here because I want to be here, right? Because I care for E and he cares for y'all, so I care for y'all, right? But I could easily be playing football in the backyard with my kids. I could easily be, you know, non-COVID, hanging out with somebody. So you and part of it, you work hard and you play hard. That's very, very important. When you accomplish a goal, celebrate that. Let me tell you the ways that I do this real quickly. I have a whiteboard in my office at home and at work. It's a huge whiteboard, and I write down things that I have to do. Sometimes daily goals. I used to write down daily goals when I needed to make that a habit. What am I going to accomplish today? How long do I think it's going to take me to do this? And when I accomplish it, I strike through it. And when I've struck, you know, checked off 5 things, I celebrate that. I might do it in different ways. I might be like, oh man, I'm about to get an extra 30 minutes in at the gym. Or I might say, you know what, I'm about to go get me a milkshake from Chick-fil-A because those cookies and cream milkshakes are amazing. Or I say, you know what, in 3 months from now, I'm going to Puerto Rico. Like you know, so part of setting goals and feeling like things are a mean to an end, you work hard, but you also have to play hard. And I tell you, whether I was in undergrad or grad school or being married with little kids in California or Maryland, I have fun. For me right now, watching movies is a lot of fun for me. I've always enjoyed watching movies. Me and my wife, we've always watched movies. This is one of the first things her parents would let her do with me was go to the movies. They'd be like, take our daughter to the movies and bring her home. And so we've always loved watching movies. So you have to have fun. But sometimes your friends won't understand it. Like I've had some friends, they don't get it. They kind of get it now that we've hit 40. They didn't get it at 25 though. You know what I'm saying? They didn't get it at 21. And again, that's not up to you to help them get. Your train is going down the track. They can get back on once they figure themselves out.
Thank you. Thank you. Up next, I think Nas, you have your hands raised.
Yeah. Before I say my question, I just want to reiterate how thankful we are to have you here and how much we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and experience. So I know you mentioned in your values that you see in a person, one of them was authenticity. So I had a question about that. So obviously, and I'm sure you've had experience with this, when you're trying to get where you want to go, you have to go through people like say a boss or an authority figure that you kind of have to cater to or like, you know, answer to. So how do you kind of bridge the gap between being your true authentic self while, you know, making sure that you maintain this relationship with this authority figure in a respectful way? Or is there even a bridge to gap anyway? Can you be fully your authentic self while maintaining this authority figure status?
Man, great question. Look, I mean, authenticity is difficult. And as you saw, that was high on my list. For me, the way I think about it is, and some of this oftentimes comes with autonomy as well. The more autonomy you get oftentimes, the more you can embrace your true self in different spaces. But real talk, all of us know that we code change. Like it's just part of it. Like even the conversation I'm having with you all is slightly more colloquial than it would be if I'm, say, giving a lecture. Say if like you know, the sociology department in Notre Dame has invited me before and we were trying to figure out scheduling and stuff. But say like my lecture there would be slightly less colloquial, right? It would be slightly different, but still for myself, it's still fluid. But as the sociologist Irving Goffman would say, we all have a front stage, which is what people see, and a backstage. You have to figure out how much you're comfortable with compromising yourself, with compromising your true self. And I'll tell you, it will be tested, it will happen, and you will compromise your true self. The question becomes, so I view those kind of things as failures. The question is, are you going to fall forward and embrace that and say, man, I really I kind of sold out on that one. You know, like you around a group of people at work, this is going to happen. I'm sure for David, I know it's happened for Eric and some of the other professionals here. You're in a group with some white colleagues and someone makes a joke about Black people or Asian people or immigrants. And you kind of don't say much. Right? Or you kind of laugh with them. Yeah, you just kind of sold out. You know, your silence became your acceptance. As my grandfather who served in 2 wars, Purple Heart, Bronze Star would say, right? So part of what I aim to do is to gain as much autonomy as I can to where I can be fluid moving from space to space. And only you can decide over time what that's going to look like and what that's going to be.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Now, I was also going to say, final point on this. I always think about 2 questions now. It used to be 1. The first one is, would my grandmother and my mom, but particularly my grandma, would my grandma be proud of what I'm doing in this exact moment? And what I'm doing in this exact moment, what I do around my grandma. And I ain't saying I'm about to party with my grandma and, you know, after I turned 21, I didn't throw back a few, like I ain't about to, you know, but now that I'm the age I am, like me and my grandma bust out some wine, or I'll pull out some bourbon, like we'll do that. It ain't like I'm gonna be sloppy drunk. Like I'm not a sloppy drunk person, but that is a premise that I use. The second premise I use is, now that I have kids, if my kids saw me in this moment, would I be ashamed of what they see and what they hear from their dad? If the answer to that question is yes, I don't do it. And that's part of like in this social media era where people see so much and you feel like you got to put on. No, like look, the whole point is can you be authentic enough where you're not compromising yourself? And part of that again takes time, you know, and I think all of us grow and we all change.
Thank you. Jamal, you up next.
Thanks. One, thank you, Dr. Ray. Great list. I thought the jewels you put in the top 10 were great. They were better, I think, than the actual statements were. Like, there was so much more. I hope everybody got something out of that. There was, I think, 7, 8, and 9. I was writing them down. So 7, 8, and 9. You started with 7, and well, you didn't start with 7, but on the 7th one, you mentioned things that I took away from that whole one. You mentioned real estate, you mentioned whole life insurance, you mentioned owning stocks and things like that to invest in as examples of investing. And you mentioned like investing in yourself, like you would invest in all the other things. And what I took away from that 7th point was ownership, right? All that in some form or fashion represents ownership. It is not being at the behest of it, is being at the control of and owning a thing. And then you went, I love that you went into 8 and 9, which seemed very dissimilar, right? You talked about having a partner who is upgrade you, and then you talked about your mom. And the reason I connected those 3 was, and my question was, I was happy to hear how you put these people, these women in your life at the forefront. I really respect the notoriety that you gave to the role that your wife plays in things, and the impact and power of a great relationship in that dynamic. So it occurs to me that you have a very healthy relationship with the women in your lives, and how you are showing up as a man in those relationships. That is something that I personally have become more and more in the recent years of my life present to not being super prevalent in the Black community when it comes to how Black men are in that dynamic. And what I mean is we want to be the king of the castle without really doing much that supports that title or that placement. And you seem to have, in the midst of all that, developed a very healthy relationship. What I'm assessing very much from the outside, a healthy relationship with your role in those relationships and with those relationships. And I know you mentioned having mentors that your mom made intentional for you growing up, but how did you develop that sense of self in the midst of that I think is even in my own growing up and maturation, missing in a lot of us, and as we move through relationships have to learn to cultivate and actually be men in the capacity that has some sort of ownership and possession of our role in the community versus just showing up and just wanting to be the man without any sort of reason or rationale behind that desired title.
Man, you just nailed it. Look, the way I think about this is, I mean, first, as you got from number 7, I love how you connected 7, 8, 9. It's exactly what I wanted people to take away. Ownership is key. Leads to autonomy. It leads to people being able to be authentic, right? When you don't own something, somebody else is telling you what to do. Now you work for somebody else's dreams. The way that I've always thought about it is upholding myself is also upholding womanhood, particularly Black womanhood, in terms of thinking through that. Whether that's my wife, whether that's my mom or my grandma, my aunt. So you hit the nail on the head. This is where dignity comes in for me for number 10. Look, as a man, you don't simply have people kissing your feet because you got something in between your legs. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not how this works. You have to earn that. And see, part of what's happened is over time, as my wife and I have been together well over 20 years, about 23 years at this point, is I have earned her trust and respect because I have shown her over time that is what should happen, and vice versa. So this gets back to just how I view the relationship. I don't view things in a power eye. I'm just not the running back and everybody's clearing out the way for me to run the ball. Me and her are running in a dual back set. And the thing that I understand, even if people are religious, if you go that route and you're Christian, and even if you're Muslim, when you read these texts, they talk about the woman being beside. That's the symbolism of the rib. It's not something below, it's beside. So for me, I'm very clear about that particular process. And part of what I also realize is that you have to end up earning that respect and that trust through your actions. And when you fail, because you will, I mean, when you be in relationships with a person for a long time, you're going to mess up. I mean, you're going to mess up and you're going to mess up bad. The question is, are you going to humble yourself? Same process. And are you going to improve your behavior and do what you need to do? See, for me, it's really important having boys for me to mimic the love that I have for their mother, for their grandmothers, for their great grandmothers. That's important for me. But part of what I realized, I don't get to be the king of the table just because I got something in between my legs. I become the king of the table because I earn it and I paid the price to do it. And my family knows that when they need something and something happens, they can count on me just like I can count on them. And I think part of what's happened is, and this will be clear, y'all, it's probably already happened in your personal life. It might be you, but you'll definitely see it when you get older. Part of what research documents about men and male behavior, masculinity, is that when we're not getting the level of autonomy and dignity and respect from our work roles, what we do for a living, then at home, we oftentimes take that out on the people who are closest to us. And part of what happens there is then we double down on masculinity. We double down on being what we call a hegemonic male, right? Acting like the people have to bow down to us. Look, man, don't come home talking funky to your wife because the dude at work who you should be able to control and check, you didn't check him. You let that go. Now you come home talking crazy to your wife. Come on, man. Like that's not me. You know what I do? I come home and I'm like, hey, let me tell you what just happened. And you know what? My wife says, this is what you do. You go back and tell them this and vice versa. And I'm like, man, I think I'm going to show up at work today. Oh, I'm good for that. I'll be like, yeah, I think I'm going to show up at your job today. Sometimes you just got to just let people know, like what's going on. And so part of it is, I think that happens. And it's men, what we realize, particularly in the Black community, Black women are under attack. They are asked to do more than women of any other racial group because systematically Black men have continuously been devalued. We've been overly incarcerated. It's been difficult for us to get equitable work. And the system is set up for us to then come home and fight with each other instead of realizing that when we come together, not even just as a household, but as a community, that's where the power is. That's where the ownership is. That's the autonomy. That's the dignity. That's the authenticity, right? We need to be building multiple Black Wall Streets instead of sitting at home or even on social media feuding about whether or not somebody has A, B, or C. And again, you find somebody who's with you, not because of the degrees you have or how much money you make, but because they value what you value. Because your values might be different from mine. I know we almost out of time. Can I get David in real quick? And then we.
Thanks, Doc. You get on even more, but thank you. That was perfect.
David, go ahead. Let's get you in. I know we at time.
And Dr. Ray, I appreciate you coming here and taking time out of your day. This has been incredibly insightful and it's amazing to hear you speak. So my question is essentially, what about your dreams in particular scares you?
What about my dream? Man, you know what, David? My dreams scare me literally all the time. And this is what I could tell you all. Like I remember, so the one that I told you all before, and then I'll tell a new one. I remember being in undergrad because I was gonna go to medical school like that. Like I mentioned that my wife is a nurse practitioner, my mom is a nurse, my grandma's a nurse, my mother-in-law is in healthcare. Like I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go be a physician. I took Latin, I worked at the VA, I did all this stuff, and I got in college and took a sociology course and fell in love with it. I don't even have time to get in that story, but I was like, what the heck is sociology and what the heck do I do with it? And then once I figured that out, it scared me because I was like, oh shoot, not only do I have to be in school for a long time, now I have to completely go and tell everybody who knows me that I want to do something different with my life. That's what's spooky, right? So you know what? This is part of how I got to the things I share with you all. I came home and told my mom, right? And I said, Mom, I don't think I want to go to med school anymore. And she said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm kind of unsure yet. I said, but I really like this sociology thing. And I know I'm going to need multiple degrees. I think I could like teaching, I think. And she said, baby, you do what makes you happy. But whatever you do, you figure it out. And so some of my future dreams that have scared me, or most recently, I mentioned earlier publishing in American Journal of Sociology, which that's one of the top sociology journals. They accept less than 10% of papers that are submitted to them. And I remember I had a dream that I had gotten my paper published there, and it freaked me out. And for like a year or two, I didn't mess with that paper at all. I was scared. I was like, oh man, if I fail, what's going to happen? I felt like I was walking on eggshells, right? And then another dream I had, which was, I was like, and I'll tell you all when it happened. So Trayvon Martin was murdered less than a month after my youngest son was born. And that it messed with me. Like it messed with me chemically, I think, right? To have brought somebody into the world and then see this on TV and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can protect them from that. Like as a parent, that's a difficult pill to swallow. And then I remember a few years later when Philando Castile was killed. And if you were able to muscle through watching that video, at the end when you could only hear, and that little girl, Diamond Reynolds' little girl, as Diamond Reynolds was crying, it was Philando's girlfriend, and the little girl was saying, "Mommy, don't cry, I'm here." One of my kids was 4 years old at that point. That little girl was 4. And I remember being at the park, and I just started crying because I was like, dude, you are researching this stuff and you're feeling helpless. So you know everybody else is, particularly Black people who care about Black kids. And I had a dream at that moment that not only was I going to be on national and international TV, but I also had a dream that I was going to be testifying on important legislation. And we fast forward 6-7 years, and not only am I on TV every week on something, like this past week, I was on NPR. I was doing some on Washington Post. I was on the local news here talking about police reform bills, but I'm also testifying on those bills, helping policymakers with the research that I produce to make informed decisions about those bills. Everything from abolishing qualified immunity to strengthening and really building up the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which my research helped to inform, that passed the House of Representatives, to helping to bolster civilian payouts for police misconduct and transforming that so that taxpayers don't have to pay that, and instead it falls on police department insurance policies. Those were dreams, David, that scared me, where I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if that's supposed to be me. And you know what I did? I followed the model that I gave you all. I said, okay, if that's the goal 7 years from now, who's doing that? I identify the people who are doing that. It was kind of difficult because it's not too many people who are on TV and doing policy stuff. Too many people who do that. You know what I'm saying? Like full disclosure, I chaired a Joe Biden campaign committee when he was running for president. Like these are the kind of things that like I am at the table, and I dreamed that, and then I had to go make it happen by setting goals. What is the 5-10 year goal? What's the yearly goal? What's the monthly goal? What's the weekly goal? What do I need to be doing today to do that? And I identified those people who were doing that, and I followed the script. I failed a lot, but the successes, I tell you, they are making change.
Thank you. I appreciate that.